Hello and welcome to Wasted Plotential, where we discuss the wasted potential of our favourite plotlines. The most frustrating thing about consuming a waifu-driven franchise is that your favourite girl will never be the one who gets to be the most popular, especially with the Japanese who gravitate towards the tsunderes and the lollies, which are objectively the worst. And that's why Konosuba as a series does not give a about Darkness. Of the three main girls of the series, Darkness is my favourite, my actual favourite is Wiz, but that's not saying a whole lot when the competition consists of the trash goddess who is canonically the worst girl, and Megumin the meme lolly. Of course Kazuma's going to want to bang the 14-year-old, and I mean that because in the light novels, as soon as she turns 14, Kazuma becomes incredibly attracted to her, and of course Aqua will get a lot of focus due to being the catalyst for the entire series and the one with the most motivation to kill the Demon King. So where does that leave Darkness? As a background extra, essentially. She's just there to do her BDSM shtick during action scenes and occasionally abuse her status to get her friends out of a bind. And with the light novel series now at an end, unless we get a sequel series to tie up the loose ends, where the author really wants to give Darkness some love for bloody once, a kind of Konosuba Darkness if you will, it's going to stay that way. I know how the series ends, and without spoiling anything, I can tell you she does very little in the climax. But there was a story right before the end where I think Darkness could have had a good bit of focus right before she fades into the background again to focus on Aqua and Megumin for the final two volumes. In volume 15, a Demon King general named Celestina, or Serena, shows up in town and starts brainwashing the townsfolk into her followers and worshippers of her dark goddess Regina. After half of the novel is spent with Kazuma trying to get under her skin, she manages to trick him into becoming brainwashed by him feeling indebted to her. For the second half, whether intentionally or not and with his inhibitions completely removed, Kazuma continues to sabotage Serena's plans by sexually harassing her and deepening how indebted he feels to her for allowing him this freedom to abuse her, destroying her reputation and weakening her power in the process. Eventually she can't take it anymore and begs his friends to take him back. Kazuma then forces her to drink a potion to reduce her level to 1, neutralising the threat she poses for good. What I'm proposing is that Kazuma's role, at least in the second half, should have gone to Darkness instead. While Kazuma's antics throughout are funny, I think Darkness's traits would fit into the second half quite naturally and set up a nice bit of drama towards the end. Darkness is a giant masochist, her entire premise being that she's a crusader with the highest hit points in Axel, more out of a desire to be beaten and ravished by strong monsters than out of her desire to protect the town. She absolutely gets off on being hurt and humiliated, so you'd think she'd really enjoy this mental domination in which her inhibitions are nullified. I mean, we all remember how much she enjoyed being possessed by Veneer, right? She'd go absolutely ham on openly declaring her inability to resist Serena's commands right in the middle of town, which would sour Serena's reputation in the town by making everyone think she's some kinky weirdo with ill intent towards Darkness. This persists and gets worse for Serena as time goes on, leading to her giving up on trying to use Darkness for protection and political gain, just begging Kazuma and friends to take her back. Kazuma taking the chance to make Serena drink the potion and achieving much the same result as in the actual novel. So you can see where Darkness can take Kazuma's place without really losing anything in the process. It just slightly changes the source of comedy we get. But what was that drama I mentioned earlier? Well, part of the brainwashing is that the subject becomes a devout follower of Regina, Serena's dark goddess who imbues her with power. The significance here is that Darkness is the only member of the party to be explicitly religious. Aqua is a literal goddess, and thus Kazuma lost any faith he may have had long ago. And I don't recall the subjects of faith coming up with the Crimson Demons, but they'd probably just make up a god as the alleged source of their Chunibyo power and not actually worship them. But Darkness is a devout follower of Eris, which is highlighted by the revelation that her good friend Chris is Eris in disguise. While mostly brought up as an excuse to not convert to the Axis cult or to satisfy her kink around members of said religion, Darkness's faith clearly does genuinely mean a lot to her, so you can imagine how she might be embarrassed but mostly able to get over her humiliation from her actions under Serena's influence, but being genuinely devastated by the fact that she was made to disavow Eris and her teachings and worship a dark god instead. Especially if Serena got a kick out of making Darkness publicly and repeatedly insult Eris and her followers as a way of getting back at her for humiliating her so often. Kazuma, knowing that Darkness's closest friend is actually the goddess she worships and that Eris would never hold what Darkness was made to say against her, can track her down and ask her to speak with Darkness as Eris and comfort her. Eris is perhaps not allowed to openly appear in the mortal realm, deciding to go as Chris instead, but her attempt to comfort Darkness as a different person who is sure that Eris won't mind goes about as well as you'd expect. Kazuma then intervenes and exposes her as Eris somehow, maybe by threatening to use steel on her again, which is the reason she switched from a skirt to shorts in the light novels, and she's able to make Darkness feel better by telling her what a good friend she is, and that she knows Darkness didn't mean any of what she said. Then in the epilogue, Chris accompanies Darkness when she goes around to everyone she offended to help explain the situation to them. And then in the next volume, when the party encounters Serena again and Darkness goes to smash her pinky toe with a brick, it's more personal and more hilarious. With this, we get a nice bit of focus on Darkness right before the end. She learns that Chris is Eris and we can hear in the next volume about how they've become even closer friends since. We gain a bit of serious character stuff without getting too serious thanks to Kazuma's threats, and we don't even lose anything notable by switching out Kazuma's sexual harassment for Darkness's emphatic indulgence in her humiliation. You could even keep Kazuma brainwashed alongside Darkness and lose absolutely nothing if his antics are that important to you. Alas, Darkness will never get the attention she deserves, because it's not enough for Megumi to get her own spin-off series that you need to read to fully understand the multiple trips to the Crimson Demon Village in the main series like this was friggin' Index and Railgun. She has to be the one Kazuma falls for because he, true to his Japanese heritage, has shit taste. I mean, just as an example, Persona girls who get the push are fairly consistently the worst in their games, fight me. If you liked this video, why not support me on Patreon and watch the exclusive reading of the old script I wrote for this video months ago and forgot about? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is one of Crunchyroll's best by The Cartoon Cypher. It's a good channel about anime dubs like Gintama, Dragon Maid, Kaguya-sama, that one Pinocchio movie where he sounds like he's stoned, and of course, Konosuba. Definitely worth a watch.